Hi, I'm Ray Lozano.
And I'm Dahlia Lozano, his daughter. Yay! And welcome to Speaking of That. What are we speaking about today?
Oh, I love this topic because we're going to be talking about how do you know if you're a speaker?
That's a good one.
Yeah, because that's the other question that I get when I'm on the road occasionally. It's like, how did you know? How do I know if I'm a speaker? And it really goes down for me like this internal thing that told me I have no other option. I know it sounds weird. I know not everybody has that, but from high school on, I knew I wanted to be a kid on stage. I wanted to get kids out of class for 45 minutes or so, and there was just this thing inside me that drove me to do this. And I think other people have that drive for other things, right?
I love that because I think that is something that every human has somewhere, and not everyone finds it for sure, And so that's one of the things that we try to tell the young people is like, you got to find it. But the thing is, everyone has it.
Everybody has it.
But whatever it is, there's something that is that feeling of like, I need to do this,
Right.
And when you feel that feeling, you might not know exactly what it is. Like I know for me, well, for you, you knew it was speaking.
Right.
I didn't know what it was for a long time.
Right.
And even I've been speaking for, about 8 years, but I feel like I just figured out, it's speaking like, a few years ago, like recently. It took a long time because it was like, well, his thing is speaking. I kind of like this and I kind of like that and I kind of like cooking and I kind of like, all these different things to where I was like, all of those little things here and there culminate to, I can use what I like about this, what I like about that as speaking.
Right.
That's another great thing about being a speaker also is, let's say your dream is like to be a chef. There's a lot of different ways you can be a chef, right? But being a chef typically is going to look very similar.
Right.
Being a speaker is so cool because it's such a blank canvas to where you like, pottery and siracha and dogs.
Right.
You could be a speaker.
Yeah.
You like mountain climbing and underwater welding. You could be a speaker. So whatever your different passions are, you can use those to be a speaker. That's what I think is so cool about speaking.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to take it down even one step further because you really sparked some things in my head.
Cool.
So speaking is the way that I get this feeling out from inside me. Okay. Like I heard somebody say the reason why they eat sushi is because they like wasabi so much. It's what transports wasabi into their mouth, is sushi.
Yeah, the sushi's just a little like a vehicle. Yeah, that's great.
So I think for me, having a purpose of making somebody else's life a little bit better or having that light bulb go on in their head. And I'll give you a story or an example of that. One time I was speaking in this classroom and there must have been about 40 kids in front of me. And I'm talking about my dad, being an alcoholic, and then I'm going to go into some alcohol information, stuff like that. So I look, and about the fourth row back, there's this young lady, and you could tell she's holding back these tears.
Okay.
And she's getting ready to cry. And I'm like, gosh, I really don't feel like I'm saying anything that would bring that deep of an emotion out.
Yeah.
And so she's sitting there, and I cannot help but not look at her when I'm like looking at the audience. And so I talk about my dad being a different guy when he drinks. So when this presentation was over, everybody left and she walked up to me real slow and she goes, man, your presentation really helped me out a lot. And of course I'm curious. I said, well, what did it do for you? What happened? And she goes, my dad makes fun of me a lot when he's drunk, talks about my weight, talks about I'm a dummy, talks about, I'm not going to amount to anything in life. And she goes, I always take it super personal, but from your presentation, it sounds like my dad is doing something he's not even really aware of, right? I said, it still hurts. I can't take that away because it's still painful.
Right.
But I feel like your dad, when he drinks, is starting to think about himself and he projects that onto you.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And all of a sudden in her head, it like clicked, like, that's my dad.
Yeah.
he's talking about himself and not so much about me, but he's directing it towards me, and she said, maybe I won't look at him as this insulting alcoholic dad anymore, but I'll look at it as a little bit like this poor, not pathetic, I forget the word she used, but this poor dude going through this thing,
Yeah, I had a friend who told me, like, if you have someone like that, where you want to change the way they're thinking, where someone is doing something that, like, is hurting you, but they're upset at themselves, or they're the ones being crazy, right? It's not you, because she hopefully knows she's not a dummy. She's, So when you're in that situation where someone is like, you're this, you're that, or being crazy, and you're, he said, imagine them dressed up like a clown. And then the things that they're doing aren't hurtful to you. They're the ones being silly.
Yeah.
They're the ones, so in your mind, be like, okay, it's not me. It's them, you know?
Yeah.
And he said he'll like kind of sing circus music in his head too. To remind him, they're the ones being silly.
Yeah.
They're the ones acting, I don't have to take those feelings onto me. But how great that you were able to give her that message.
Yeah. And it shifted her. She had a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Where now she can handle those insults, understanding it's not about her.
Yeah.
That's it right there.
Yes.
That's what I wanted in my life. And, people ask me, how long am I going to speak? And I'm like, I want to be that dude that comes out with a walker, like, you crazy kids, don't be doing that.
Yeah.
Because it is so fulfilling. And I wish I had the right vocabulary to talk about that in my life. Just wanting to have an impact on kids. And I know that there's adults that have like an impact on one kid or 5 kids. But can you imagine standing in front of 800 kids, and out of the 800 kids, 600 of those kids are going to be like, man, that's what I needed to hear.
Yes. And what's crazy too is you just never know which one of those kids you're going to reach.
Right.
Because you can go into a presentation thinking, oh, I'm this person, I talk about this thing.
Right.
I'm going to reach kids who look like me, who think like me, right? And then what's crazy is you can end up reaching people you never expected.
Right.
And that's so cool too. We have this one speaker that we work with, Paul.
Yeah.
And Paul is a ex-gang member. So he, grew up, his older siblings were in the gang. So he was like, that's what I want to do. And they were like, no, but he's like, I'm into it. Then his younger siblings come in and he's like, no, Anyway, long story short, fantastic story.
Right.
Amazing story. But his whole story is gang related. So sometimes he will kind of brand himself as like a gang speaker.
Right.
And one thing I like to tell him is like, dude, when we travel together, I could listen to his story again and again and again. Because even though I don't have any firsthand experience with gang stuff, there are things in his presentation that strike me.
Yeah.
He talks a lot about feeling like the kid who's like, oh man, like I wish I had their clothes. Oh man, like, they got better stuff at their house. Like, I wish I had that. Or like, for me, it was like, how do you know that those are the cool shoes to wear?
Right.
That kind of stuff. And just always feeling like out of place, wanting to know, like, how do I, in the story, he puts on like a baseball uniform, which translates to him putting on like a gang uniform. Right. But I had that feeling, what's the uniform?
Right.
What's the group? That I can go be in the group where, whether it's a baseball team or whatever it is, where I know what to wear, I know how to act, I know what's expected of me, and I'm rewarded for my behavior, right? And so that him looking and finding it in the gang, I can see myself as a kid looking, looking for something. So that moment I think is really universal. Then it's funny because, we'll travel together and it'll be like, oh, this big gang member looking dude, and I'm over here in my little speaker dress with my heels and stuff, and we're walking around and we must look like such a mixed match couple of people,
right?
And then we're all just people,
right? And
you really can't tell what someone has gone through based on what they look or what they haven't, or how strong they are. You don't know. Everyone has different levels of all of that. So the best thing to do is, if you have a story, understand that there are millions of people who have some kind of similar struggle,
right.
who can benefit from that story, who can benefit from hearing that point in your story where you're like, I was lost, I didn't know. Because so many other people have that,
Right.
And so then you don't have to worry about, I got to appeal to this kind of kid because I'm this kind of person.
Right.
You just tell your story.
Right.
And it's amazing the vast variety of young people that will come up to you and be like, wow, I saw myself in your story.
Right.
Where I'm like, I'll have teachers like, I saw myself in your story. And I'm like, okay, you just don't know.
You just don't know. And one of the cool things is our sponsor today, the Youth Speaker Blueprint, talks about that.
Yeah.
It talks about taking your story and turning it into something that kids can see themselves in when it comes to being a speaker.
Yeah, and what's really cool is it gives you the tools to be able to do that on your own. So what's really cool is it's not just, here's what a good presentation looks like, now do it. It's, what is your story? We'll find this piece in your story and maybe take it here, and find this in your story and maybe cut it down to this. And so it's your story being reworked, not, like a set story and then you get to add whatever you want to it. Type of thing.
Where you got to change a blue house to a red house.
Yeah.
This is taking your story and turning it into something that's powerful. And what is amazing to me is everybody has a story.
Yeah.
So if you're watching right now and you're thinking, I don't have a story, you do have a story.
Oh, yeah.
Let me give you an example. And this is way before the Youth Speaker Blueprint, when I was straight out helping people. There was this one young man that I got to know, and he was the lead chef at this pretty nice restaurant in town.
Okay.
And so we just started talking, and he's like, oh, I really love what you're doing. And he said, I would like to do that sometime. And I'm like, well, man, you got it. Let's do it. He goes, well, I don't really know if I have a story. I'm like, well, tell me what your story is, because you do. And he said, well, I grew up in an okay home, but I struggled with my weight. And that's how he got into cooking and wanted to cook well, because he was in really good shape.
Okay.
A chef.
Yeah, totally.
And so I'm like, that's your story. I said, you're struggling with these things. And he goes, well, how would I tell that story to make it interesting? So what we did with this guy, and oh my gosh, I wish I would have a presentation like this. He came in and he was talking to a classroom of 40 kids, and he brought in a hot plate.
Okay.
And like one of these big Blackstone ones. And
like the kind those little like fire camp cooker things.
Yeah, but a little bit bigger.
Okay.
And so what he did is he started telling his story, and then he turned on the fire, and he brought out the example, like the heat in his life started to change, and he went into the whole thing about food and his life being changed. And then he took a tortilla and he goes, this is the foundation of my life. And he put this tortilla on the skillet, and he talked about that and how his foundation was, and how he grew up and all that. And then he goes, and then I had to bring in, and then he brought out this cheese, and he put it on top of the tortilla and talked about his skill and his creativity. And then he put a little bit of meat, and then he put some tomatoes, and he put some onions, and he put some salsa. Then he put the other tortilla on top, and he was basically making quesadillas.
Yeah.
And the kids were just like, wow, that's so cool. So when he finished, he said, here's all the things in my life that make this delicious meal of who I am. And he had enough quesadillas for all the kids to, share a quesadilla. And we had put that together, and this dude loved it because he had combined his cooking ability to cook with his life. And all of those things that he had out were cues for him to remember what to say. And so
that's so funny.
Yeah.
And that's such a cool tool also to be like, oh yeah, remember the cheese is, this thing, and the meat is, because then that also helps you as a speaker.
Yeah.
How fun. I love that.
Yeah. And he did such a great job. I don't know where he is now or, what he pursued with that.
Yeah.
But it just had this impact. And he was one of those people that I don't have a story, or my story's not big enough, or, and that's what I love for him. And that's what I love about the Youth Speaker Blueprint. Is it talks about how to get your story up and running like that.
I love that. Yeah. And so back to the topic, you just never know, if you want to be a speaker, you have a story.
Right.
You might think, I don't know. You have a story, for sure.
Yeah.
We worked with one speaker. This was one of my favorites that we've worked with so far. And she had the silliest story. She came to us, I don't even know if I have a story, right? Yeah. And so her story ended up being, she had a dog when she was younger. You know, I think we talked about this on the last one, but she had a dog, and then her dog passed. She was like, you know what? I think I'm ready for a new dog. Had to figure out what does it take to have a new dog as an adult, because her last one was as a kid. Yeah. And it turned into this story about being prepared and being okay when you make a plan and your plan goes awry and there's way more than you expected, right? Which is something we've all had happen to us. Right. And then you're in that situation where like, I planned for this and now crazy stuff is happening. And it was just such a really impactful story out of just, I think I'm ready for my first dog as an adult, you know? Right. And so, yeah, just those little life moments, I think are really the thing that connect us to each other, you know? And people are so impressed by the big stories. They're impressed by, you know, I did this thing that no one's ever done before, which is very impressive, you know? But those little moments of like, did you ever have that happen to you? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I had that. That connects people, you know? And so when you're giving that to your audience, it's such a gift for them as well to be able to be like, oh, someone else has walked this road. Maybe I can learn a little bit about how to make my own road easier. Right. And then back to what you were saying, knowing that you're making that kind of impact of like, wow, hopefully one kid will go home today and be like, you know what? I'm a little different than other kids. That doesn't make me a loser, you know? Yeah. Boom. That is such a great feeling. Yeah, that's it. So my, you know, how do you know if you want to be a speaker? If you want to have an impact on people's lives, if you feel like, you know, you've gone through some difficult things and you want to share those difficult things, or if you've gone through like extraordinary things, like, you know, and it can be real simple, exactly like that girl with the dog, or I knew somebody that, you know, was in a car accident because they were looking at their cell phone. Powerful story, and we developed that. There was a kid that, this one is pretty amazing. This was way back in the day. He jumped rope. Oh, okay. And his whole presentation was on jumping rope. And he was a bigger guy. Now that a bigger guy. And he jumped all kinds of rope. He had set records. And I knew this guy. And so every time I was at this presentation, he'd call me up on stage. Okay. And I would get on this guy's back. And I'm weighing 200 plus pounds. Yeah. And he would jump rope with me on his back, like just 3 times. That's insane. But that's cool. I'd love to see that. It was just jumping rope. And for 45 minutes, he was inspirational. Wow. You know, because if you look at a thing, and I know there's people watching right now that have goofy things. Yeah. Like they can do a yo-yo. Yeah. Or they can make this weird sound with their mouth. Yeah. Or, you know, and he took his, I never knew that rope jumping would get me all the way around the world. Yeah. You know, and that's what it is. And it's just this thing inside you. And I want to be able to explain, because I want somebody watching to be able to go, I know what you're talking about. You know? Well, I know, like, I would say especially too, like, if you're at this point in the video, you probably have that thing, right? If you have that feeling of like, I need it, I want it. Right. That's it right there, you know? Yeah. So yeah, definitely. If you are questioning whether or not, am I even worth listening to? Yes. The answer is yes. Right. The answer is just yes. Yeah, you know, I love it. Yes, and so the answer is yes. And then the next question is, are you willing to discover that story? Are you willing to discover, you know, I thought it was a boring story. Let me work it. Right. Let me dig it. Let me cut out extra details. Let me, you know, make sure those details, are you willing to do all of that work? Right. And that's where it comes into play, who can be a speaker versus who like will be a speaker. Right. But man, if you're watching this video and you're like, that's me, I have a story, you do. You do. Yeah. You know, so I think that's it right there. Totally, that's it right there. Yeah. And so it's just that thing that drives you. Yeah. You know. And how cool. I love seeing people's passion like that. Yeah, right? And no matter what it is, we have a family member that loves plumbing. And they love talking plumbing. They love putting pipes together. They love figuring out the flow.
I don't know where that comes from, but that is their passion.
Yeah.
And they love doing it. And, that's how it works.
Yeah, definitely. So I think wrapping up, if you're watching this and you're like, man, I think I have a story to share, get out there and share your story.
Right.
Check out Youth Speaker Blueprint, see if there's anything there that can help you figure out how to tell your story a little bit better, and tell your story because your story matters. Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.